Good afternoon. Thank you for choosing Graps TV and the Sicko Show. I'm your host, the Matty Man, and we are ready. Now that I've processed this entire pay-per-view for All Out, what an actual night. I mean, when you think about it, overall, we had 8 matches in the main card, and we had apparently 4 matches because All Out 0 Hour was a pretty good warm up if you ask me, and it's one of those scenarios where there is just a whole lot to process. So today's show is going to be results based with analysis. I know a lot of people like to hear then we did this, and then we did that, and then we did the other, and that led to this. I think all of us are just sitting around here at this moment trying to process this thing because Tony Khan, in general, spectacular Tony Khan fashion, has crafted an event. And I kind of knew that the twits were going to be twitting, and I knew the Facebooks were going to be facing, and I knew the Instagrams were going to be instant. I'm just making up words right now, guys. Just bear with me. Hey, we got 3 viewers in right now. It's always great. Where to even get started? And like I said, I'm going to do results based today because I'm pretty sure everybody that's watching the show and that will watch it on the replay have already seen All Out. And if you're like me, you're just wandering through this fog. It was like a fog of war, so to speak, that all culminated into we knew we were going to get something absolutely phenomenal. Because let's face it, Tony Khan is the king of pay-per-view. He is the undisputed king of pay-per-view. And anybody says any different, I'm sorry, you're just wrong. I mean, that's an opinion, I understand, but if I had to compare All Out, even with All In, even with Double or Nothing, it's just gradually, it's built on top of each other, and here we are. Now, I heard an interesting comment last night, and I thought it's a little bit contrary to how I feel, because you have WrestleMania and then you have Extreme Rules. And someone indicated that All In was basically WWE's WrestleMania and All Out was basically their Extreme Rules. But I look at it a little bit differently. All In, I still look at as AEW's WrestleMania. It was a fantastic show. 53,000, Wembley Stadium. It was a great environment, great energy, great everything. All Out, a little bit more intimate, 9,000 plus. And in Chicago. And if anybody knows anything about wrestling venues in Chicago, a lot of the venues come through there because Chicago crowds generally will pop for just about anything. It's great for television. It's great for brand ambassadorship when you're showing your brand off to a new viewer. It's always good to go to Chicago because that's where you're going to get your biggest pops. And last night was absolutely no different. The Chicago crowd showed up, showed out. We had some Fed walkers there, but I mean, hey, you're going to have that in every crowd. Wasn't that big of a deal. As far as the backstage, There was a report, and that's going to cover the news part for this segment here. There was a report that there was a brawl in the back, and a lot of us are still speculating that it was fake news until we got to the scrum and realized that Tony Khan was the only person there. There was actually no talent for the press scrum. So to me, that's kind of smoke right now. I'm just putting it out there because a lot of people apparently have not heard this yet. That after the Monet match, the security went sprinting to the back. I've heard rumors about who was involved in it, and I'm not even going to repeat them because they're just rumors at this point. But I think it's safe to assume that we had an incident during the matches, and as soon as or if Tony Khan decides to share the information with everybody, or we get our typical leak with Washington. Anyway, Britt Baker. Anyway, uh, that we can honestly conclude based on the timeline of events that something probably happened. But as far as I know right now, it's just smoke and we haven't found the fire yet. But I thought it was something interesting to report because I have a feeling because All Out was so good that that's going to dominate the news feed for this week. You need to be informed. Yes, security did take off, at least from people who were in the building. We have that firsthand account, but we do not have any information and no credible source at this point in time. Today at almost 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on a Sunday. At this point in time, no one with any credibility whatsoever has any reliable information on what happened. Because trust me, the credible ones are not talking. So we know something happened. And that's where I'm going to leave it at. Now, the one thing that I will encourage you is don't believe hardly anything you read, especially next week, because there is a tradition amongst the podcasters, especially the ones that are pro WWE, and there is a tradition amongst the different promotions, WWE, that when AEW is about to pull, since you can't shut them down, you try to starve them. And then when something good happens, you try to bury it. So I'm guessing the lead story next week is going to be about the security guards running frantically to the back after the Mercedes Monet match. We do believe something happened. We don't know anything happened yet. And that's responsible reporting. Do I think something happened? Yes. Marginally credible sources have already given an idea of what's happened. And when I say marginally credible, they're more than 75% accurate. So I call them marginally credible. There have been reports that it was involving two males. There have been reports that it was involving two females, which would make more sense to me. But the reality of it is we know absolutely nothing right now. So believe nothing you read and very little of what you hear for the next week. Because the reality of it is All Out was that good, and there's nothing really to go after here except the main event, and I don't even understand that part of it. But in the coming week, it is safe to assume that we are going to have enough negative press to sink the Titanic about All Out, especially a couple of the matches that we will get into here. And I had an analogy with a friend of mine. We were chatting about it last night because they were just like, "Wow, I'm fully in to AEW now." And I went through some of the basics, like here's some of the pitfalls and so on and so forth, because now you have to have a conversation with AEW fans, new fans, like, look, this is how it's going to go. You're not going to be popular. Tribalism is going to destroy you. Mentality going to be attacked pretty much all regularly. Because for some odd reason, competition is cool in everything except wrestling. And I don't understand that at all. Nor am I wired to understand it, nor do I care to understand it. All right, that's all the negative shit out of the way now. How is everybody? Wow, we're up to 4 viewers. Let's keep liking, sharing, get the stream out. Hey, chat if you want to. If I can't read it here, it'll show up somewhere else. I'll respond to it. I love feedback. I love chat. I love all of that. I love, an engaging crowd. If I have an engaging crowd, the stream goes longer. If I don't, I just run through it and I just plow through it like it's opening season. Not a joke. Not a joke at all. And I've got to take an aside here because for the very first time in my life, my son and I actually watched this pay per view together, and he's never seen an AEW pay per view. So I was kind of gauging his look on it because he fits into that demographic, and I wanted to see where it was hitting with him. And quite frankly, it hit well. And that's what I wanted to see. Overall, I'm still processing this even as I'm doing the show because I've been talking to people like, what do you think about this and what do you think about that and what do you think about this? Because I want to get different viewpoints because I know how I felt. I know how I felt, and I've got a feeling we're all going to be like, where were you when? This is how this pay-per-view felt. It felt like a major life event. Something that was just so absolutely magnificent that it etches a feeling in your brain. Hurricane Floyd. I bring that up because I lived in Winston-Salem, and one of our popular things at night on a Friday night was to go out, meet up at Burger King, figure out what we wanted to do, and go from there. Well, Hurricane Floyd came, made a turn, and it wound up going so far inland because you have to understand Winston-Salem's like 4 hours away from the coast. So it should be nowhere near a strike zone. So all of a sudden, just out of the blue, it was horrible. We were all trapped in Burger King for like 4.5 hours while the storm went through. But the point of it is it was such an existential life event that I can tell you where I was, what I was doing, what happened, without going into any detail because, trust me, it's one of those stories that I try to forget all the time. We actually, we watched some tragedy unfold. And as teenagers, and by teenagers I mean 17, even though we were brought up and raised completely different from this generation now, it really touched you, and it touched you in a spot to make you remember how precious life was. That's what I'm talking about. Those are life events. And All Out for me, not just because my son was with me or anything like that, All Out for me was a life event. This is one of those things where I'm going to be saying 10 years from now, I remember what I was, I remember that. Yeah, because it etched a memory. I'm letting that sit for a minute. I want it to sit. I'm doing that intentionally. But it etched a memory. And I dare anybody to say the same about other products. Not necessarily WWE because they have their own way of doing it, and I'm being honest, I'm being fair. I'm being a little too over fair here. But WWE does events that are life events. Things that I can say I remember where I was when. But definitely yesterday, last night, getting set up for this thing, I knew in my heart of hearts that this pay-per-view was going to deliver on the level that it delivered. Then I wake up today and everyone's like, oh, do you think it went too far? What about this? What about that? What about the other? What about trying to make a child-friendly version of two grown men or two grown women fighting? Can we just hit that one right here? A few things I wanted to get out of the way before I get into the review. This is one of them. Show me a family-friendly way to have a fist fight. Show me a family-friendly way to throw some guy into a crowd full of people. Show me a family friendly way to dispose of violence in a wholesome manner. I'll wait. I don't know about you, but I've never been in a fist fight and was like, gosh darn it, this is going on forever. What if I break it? No, I've never, ever been in that scenario. So I don't understand PG fighting in the first place. That concept never, ever made any sense to me. In no way, shape, or form can you convince me that there is a child-friendly way to have a fist fight. So when you can figure out how to convince me that there's a child-friendly way to have a fist fight, then we can make the discuss. Then we can make that leap to go. Did they go too far? Ask me, I don't think they went far enough. But I'll get into that here in a little bit. But that's been the prevailing thing in my feed today. I'm somewhat shocked. Because apparently the pay-per-view was just so good that even your regular WWE haters are radio silent. The only things I see coming across right now are basic nitpicking things and pocket watching. That's the only thing I see. I don't see you can't say, I can say there was a couple of spots here that could use some help. But I do believe that Tony Khan has finally found that balance that he needs to build his fan base. Which brings me to the next little part here of my opening segment, my opening monologues, about attendance, ratings, things of that nature. A majority of people who make those bad faith arguments were not around or were not watching when WWE was drawing 11 million and going head to head with Monday Night Football. And the news article would say, well, they had 10 million viewers. And the argument was, well, there was Monday Night Football. They had 10 million, 10. Above Nueve, 10 million viewers. Now they have 2 million viewers. So all of wrestling is hurt from a viewership standpoint. And a lot of it, I do believe, is the WWE way of trying to convince you that there is a child-friendly way to have a fight. And there just simply isn't. I'm going to mess up and drop an F-bomb when I'm throwing fists. That happens. And I mean, we've been at this for a long time now. I think it's time to just let all that stuff die. Let all that hate die. Because what you basically did was talk yourself out of an epiphany-like experience last night. If you're tribal like that, be tribal. But just know this, you talked yourself out of a feast last night. You talked yourself out of Game of Thrones meets wrestling. And I'm not talking about the shitty part of Game of Thrones. I'm talking about that intense part of Game of Thrones meets professional wrestling. You talked yourself out of that. And you have no one to blame but yourself. Not now, not ever. Like I said, I was talking to a friend of mine last night, had absolutely no idea that they'd been ninja watching AEW. And they hit me up in the DMs and they're like, Matthew. I'm like, hey, old friend, hadn't talked to him in a couple months. Hey, old friend, I just want you to know I'm a full-time AEW watcher. What is this, Alcoholics Anonymous? We come out these? No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. It was a really fun thing. It's always good when somebody's eyes get open to a different way. And they don't just sit there and they read the dirt sheets and they repeat the dirt sheets. And they don't talk about attendance. And they don't talk about, well, it did better last year. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to take just a minor one. I'm not even going to take a major one. Clash at the Castle, when they pulled it off last year, they pulled it off in front of 50-some thousand people. This year, they pulled it off in front of 11,000 people, which represents an 80% drop. If we're going to be looking at facts, data, and statistics, that means that Clash at the Castle was summarily a flop. But it was still the highest grossing at the time because God knows we gotta have a family of four paying $1,200-$1,500 for nosebleed seats. But the fact of the matter is, if you want to talk about attendance, if you want to talk about ratings, at one point in time, Raw was bringing in 12 million on a regular. Now they're bringing in 2. SmackDown was bringing in 8.5. Now they're bringing in 1.5. So you know what? We've all experienced drops. We've all experienced the drought. The only difference is AEW is relatively new, and they don't have old hardcore fans yet. So give them some time. When I say be patient and give time, I give reasons for that. Maybe they ought to reconsider venues and blah, blah, blah. Arthur Ashe did this. Now they're barely doing that. You know what? Everybody did this, and now they're barely doing that. Every single promotion, even GCW, is having some hard times as far as attendance. Now, they're still making money. But, you know, everybody's having attendance problems. Everybody's having ratings problems. It's called a fucking recession, guys. And plus, if WWE goes through the town, that town's dry for 3 months. Because they got all the money when they went in and left. They took it all. From ticket prices to merch sales to everything else. That town is dried up for 2 or 3 months. Nobody can go through there. So it's not like you can even have back-to-back comparisons that don't wind up in bad faith arguments. Because the tribalism that we've got going on out there right now is just absolutely pathetic. And a lot of times, because we've become so tribal, because we've become so unreasonable, even reason looks like trolling anymore. Even though the people who should be paying attention to the posts apparently are. Because you'll note that when Randy Orton cut a promo, and what are you talking about WWE and AEW? Because I'm making comparisons. And if you don't make comparisons, you're ill-informed, you're idiotic, you're stupid, and that's all there is to it. If you don't compare things, if you don't compare and contrast, there will never be an understanding. But just to give you an idea, Randy Orton cut a promo on Gunther in the ring during a Raw segment where he described himself as a legend, and in the same promo said he was also a legend killer. So the promo collapses in on itself. Somebody, Covalent TV, made a big stink about that promo. So when we got to Bash at Berlin and you got the video package, see, what a lot of y'all don't even realize is they changed up Randy Orton's entire promo in the video package as an audio piece to clean it up so the parts went where they were supposed to go. But the promo collapsed in on itself. Some of us said something about that, and I got nothing but hate for like a week. You're like, oh, Randy Orton's best. I didn't say he wasn't the best. I didn't say Randy Orton shouldn't be respected. I didn't say any of that. I respect Randy Orton. Randy Orton has come through a lot. Things that you will never read about on the internet because they're buried. Randy Orton has come through hell and back to get where he is. He deserves every bit of praise he's going to get. He deserves every bit of accolades he's going to get, and he deserves the accolades and praises that he got. But he made a mistake, and it was a crucial one. So we called it out and got hate mail for it. Because reason and rationale are now becoming shunned. But not on here, because when I get ready to break this down here, like I said, we're going to go results based on this, and I'm actually going to get surgical and analytical about the matches. And I don't have a lot of time here. I got like an hour and a half. Then I got something I have to do. It's called a date. And I'm sorry, but my wife is way more important than streaming. So let's get into it. We got 10 viewers in here. Thanks a lot, guys. I really do. Here's for you. AEW breaks their show down into what's called AEW 0 Hour. For any new viewers I've got here, and they're wondering about what's this all out crap, because that does happen. And people that watch it on the replay, I do get DMs and I do get questions. All Out, or AEW breaks their pay-per-view programming down way differently than WWE does their premium live event programming. When WWE does their premium live event programming, a majority of it is recaps, if not all of it is recaps, and you get maybe one match. Well, AEW, when they process a pay-per-view, instead of talking through the whole pre-show, they usually give you 3 to 4 matches, and they call that 0 hour. Gives them a minute to plug the pay-per-view, gives everybody a minute to get warmed up for the pay-per-view. Because the wrestling is not, you're not going to find any 5-star matches in a 0 hour segment. But what you will find is a good enough mix to get everybody hyped up for the rest of the show. And actually, the 0 hour for All In, and I will say this, the 0 hour for Double or Nothing were nothing like the 0 hour here for All Out, as it was setting the tone. So we kicked off All Out with 0 hour. And we had the Acclaimed versus the Iron Savages. It was a reasonable match. I wouldn't say it was a cheat code, but it was a reasonably executed match. And side note, that's where the Acclaimed belong. Until they can organically fix their problems, split up, or whatever, the Acclaimed do not belong on the main event card. So they were properly placed in the 0 hour card with Iron Savages, who I'm mostly a fan of. I'm not a big fan of the Titty City thing, because grown heterosexual men, I should say, licking on each other's nipples is nothing very attractive to anybody. And I'm pretty sure the women are sitting there going, wow, this is gross. So, I mean, it's hard for me to get behind them. It was a decent match. It was a clock match. They had that mental clock going on in there. Somehow, for some reason, I believe the Acclaimed are trying to reach out to WWE at this point and trying to head in that way, because the last few matches I've seen them put out, they've got that mental clock going, like I need to be here, then I need to be here, then we need to be up here. That's a mental clock. Instead of flowing with the match and listening to the crowd reaction and calling it in the ring, you can see the mental clock. Well, you could really see it here. They wound up going over the Iron Savages. It was a pretty decent match. Followed up by Dusty Rhodes, Sammy Guevara, and Hologram against the Premier Athletes, the Premier Athletes continue to not get over in famous form and fashion. Dustin Rhodes, actually, you're good when you're sitting out there letting everybody else work, and the crowd wants you in the match. The crowd kept calling for Dustin Rhodes in this match. Finally, they tag him in. He hits a couple of crossroads, and whatever he calls that thing went way up in the air, and I'm blanking on that, because like I said, I'm just covering the results. I'm not going for every headlock, every wrist hold. I'm not going for that in this, because if I did that, number one, we'd be here as long as the pay-per-view, and number two, it would take away from where I'm going with everything. So we're not going to do it that way. But yeah, Dustin Rhodes, Sammy Guevara, and Hologram pick up the win. Hologram, on the other hand, finally getting into the main picture here. That was the big shout out for this match here. Hologram, they packaged Hologram, and they actually presented Hologram on a pay-per-view scale, and actually he drew fans. I mean, the fans were actually into him. Side note, Tony Khan has made 2 more trademark requests, and it looks like that Hologram may be part of a faction going forward. Maybe. I did not say he is going into a faction. But it looks like, from the sounds of things and from the looks of the trademarks, that the names might be matching similar to Hologram. So it appears to me on paper that he may be getting a faction relatively soon. And by all means, if anybody never needed a faction, Hologram did not. But we may wind up with a new version of Death Triangle, which I ain't gonna lie to you, I'm cheesing over it. I'm cheesing over Hologram right now because he reminds me of young Rey Mysterio that was footloose, fancy free, carefree, did everything, hit the whole toolbox in a 10-minute match. That was Rey Mysterio, and that's got what got Rey Mysterio over, and that's what Hologram does. He goes out there 500 miles an hour with his hair on fire every single time. It sells, it delivers. The kids love him. The parents are happy with him because he doesn't do too much ridiculous stuff in their eyes as some of the other wrestlers do. So they're marginally happy with him over the whole thing. Hey, we still got our 10 here. Thanks for sticking with me. Like, comment, and share. You know, please help get the word out. Get this algorithm going. Anyway, yeah, Rey Mysterio reminded me of a small Rey Mysterio. Hologram has got moves and move sets of things that we have, frankly, as wrestling fans, never seen. So for those who say that AEW cannot build stars, Hologram, and we got 2 more coming after that, and we did have some stars he was building. He was building Jade Cargill. She had 60 wins in AEW. He was building Jade Cargill. She got the bright eyes for the bright lights of WWE, wanted to chase that clout. Now she's there, but it doesn't matter. Tony Khan was building her. So Tony Khan does build stars. Holograms notwithstanding, that kid's got more moves than a Mississippi pimp. I am not even lying. That was a good match out of the 0 hour. They got the crowd up and moving around a little bit. Then we had the Bang Bang Gang versus the Dork Order. They call themselves the Dark Order. I refer to them as the Dork Order because they all look like a bunch of dorks. Long story short on that one, Bang Bang Gang picks up the win, followed by Undisputed Kingdom versus Top Flight and Action Andretti versus the Beast Mortos and Shane Taylor Promotions. That was a dumpster fire of a match. I mean, it was okay from a lot of standpoints. I was not digging the Beast Mortos being with Shane. I was not digging that at all. They did not have chemistry very well. Beast did not come out of this thing looking as clean as he normally does. I know we all say that the Beast needs more TV time, but let's try to tether him with somebody who's actually talented, if that's okay with y'all. I'm not really trying to shit all over Shane Taylor and all that, but you know, they need to be released. And they've tethered Hologram with a whole bunch of people who probably should go and don't. But at the same time, I understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. Hologram and the crew pick up the win there. Yeah, that wasn't even a close one. Bang Bang Gang, Dork Order. Bang Bang Gang beat the Dork Order in short order. And then we had the Undisputed Kingdom with all this. This was an absolute dumpster fire, like I said a minute ago. Undisputed Kingdom picks up the win in a fluke type scenario there, and we're on to the main card. Like I said earlier, if you're just tuning in, because we just picked up a couple of new viewers, I'm definitely going results oriented here with more of an attune to analyzing each one of the matches and getting a little bit surgical on each one of them. So I'm not going to go hold for hold, move for move, bell to bell. We're going to cover a couple of things as they become relevant, and we'll cover some match action, but most of this is going to be, you can call it opinion, you can call it whatever you want to call it. Most of it's going to be that. All right, so MJF comes out to his new package with the thank me later, so on and so forth. And not wasting any time whatsoever, Daniel Garcia jumps up in there, pulls the flag down, throws it on the floor, starts beating the shit out of MJF, and it's on. There we go. It's on. They're fighting all over, outside the ring, outside, all around the whole ring, WWE. And they're fighting in the ring, out of the ring, upside, downside. They really, in this match right here, they really both gave me that I'm going to kill you right now vibe. They set the tone for the rest of the night. That's what your curtain jerkers do. And the tone that they set for me was pretty fast paced. It was definitely, you could definitely tell this was trying to be a blood feud. I don't have much voice left today because I was doing a lot of shouting last night. Yet another reason why I didn't do the review last night. That and my son was here, and I wanted to spend time with him because I don't see him that often. I do this every day. That notwithstanding, there was a level of violence here. And I got to say, I think this is Daniel Garcia's best match I've ever seen him wrestle. So he wrestled like the world was on fire. And at the end, while MJF was carrying it, you could definitely feel a sense of urgency. Even though there was no title involved, there was pride involved. And of course, MJF picks up the win with some basic heel tactics, the nut shot and everything when the referee wasn't looking. He picks up the win. Afterwards, of course, Daniel Garcia goes off on him. Powell drives him from the second rope. Ambulance takes him off to the hospital to get checked out. They said he was definitely feeling numb, so on and so forth. So, as far as I'm concerned, MJF picked up the win. Daniel Garcia got a Pyrrhic victory. But it did set the tone for the rest of the night because the violence was not as off the chain because I don't think MJF is capable of going there. And I said that out loud, and I know Daniel Garcia is not capable of going to that next gear when it comes to turning up the violence. So, I mean, the violence was there, but the wrestling was there too. And the way they told the story in the ring, you almost feel like this is the last match we're going to see Daniel Garcia in. He had a little bit of a pout to him the whole 9 yards. At the end of it, MJF was going through the motions like, let's get this over with and let's get back to the house. Whole 9 yards, MJF picks up the pin. Not sure about Daniel Garcia's contract status at this point right now. I'm going to have to presume that they are still discussing it, since the word was put out yesterday before All Out that there were still contract discussions going on between Tony Khan and, come on, Matt, get your head out of your butt, Daniel Garcia. It's between Tony Khan and Daniel Garcia. They are having conversations. They are contract talks. We are not sure whether Daniel Garcia has actually re-upped with AEW, but if he does decide to go to WWE, Godspeed to you, son. At least you went out with the best match you've wrestled since you've been in AEW. You showed us what you can do. And you showed us that if you do come back, this is what we expect out of you. Week in, week out. You are not the Young Bucks. You cannot phone it in. You will not maintain the level of support that you've got phoning in matches like you've been doing. So just something to think about. And then following that, we've had a build-up for the Young Bucks and the Blackpool Combat Club. Wheeler Yuta and Claudio Castagnoli shows up for the tag team title match. Now, going ahead of this, there was a statement released last night that the Jacksons have been working, even though one of them was injured, and so on and so forth, which would explain last night because even though the Young Bucks have had phenomenal matches this past week, they didn't really show up that much for this. And I don't really feel like Claudio showed up for it. Now that we know how things transpired down the road, it makes sense that he was probably trying to keep his mind on that because that was going to be the bigger angle than what they were doing right then and there. Chain wrestling, good tag team tactics. I don't think Wheeler Yuta and Claudio Castagnoli have the chemistry that everybody thinks they have. It just doesn't feel like it. But I mean, the Jacksons were working like a well-oiled machine, just slow and, almost like they were phoning in. But like I said, after I discovered they actually had a legit injury, it made all those crotch tears make sense and everything else. All the spot stuff that was going on made it make sense because they knew they were going to announce that they needed to take some time off because they were hurt. So, the fact that they were there phoning it in now, I understand and I know what's going on. The problem is Claudio phoned it in too. The only person working that whole match was Wheeler Yuta, and Wheeler Yuta was working like at 500 miles an hour with his hair on fire and his ass. But it was it was not to be it was not to be productive. The Young Bucks went over, and I would give that match probably a 3 out of 5. I would give it somewhere around a 3 out of 5. I was trying to think about some positives for it because there weren't many positives in that match that I could really, really sink my teeth into. It was like a big, we're here, let's get this over with, get it done, and get out the door. There was enough violence to keep along with the theme, but part of me says that there could have been more. We just didn't get it. But then when you see the angles building near the end of the show, then it makes sense why it looked like Claudio was phoning it in. But either way, the Young Bucks beat them via regular pinfall. They did get in the cheap nut shot because apparently that's going to be a theme tonight with the guys. Following that match, Will Ospreay and the bastard Pac, or Pac, depending on how you want to call it. Cheat code, cheat code, cheat code, cheat code, cheat code, cheat code of a match. I do believe, and somebody said this earlier, and I agree with them. I think there's 3 people that can keep up with Will Ospreay. One of them is Pac, one of them is Ricochet, and the third one's the Mirror. Those are the only 3 things I know that can keep up with Will Ospreay: the Mirror, Pac, and Ricochet. And Pac and I almost have no words to convey how good this match was. The move sets, the chain wrestling, the spots, working the whole ring and the whole ring area, not just the commentary desk. Long lost start, needs to make a comeback across all promotions because there's nothing special about that announcer's desk except that it's set up to collapse to make the spot look better. That's it. But it was good. Hey, shout out to 15. We got 15 in the room today. Hang on a second here. There we go. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Your presence is always appreciated. Let's see here. You almost wanted, if they had 10 more minutes, this would be the match of the year, even over the main event. I do believe they slowed it down enough so that it wouldn't overtake because Pac and Will Ospreay are just 2 big balls of energy, selling left, selling right, moving, sticking, flip here, Poison Rana there, hidden blade. It was just one move after another, and that one's, oh good lord, the one reversal that looked like a Spanish fly that wasn't a Spanish fly. Whoo, boy, I can't get over that one either. That's a memory. That's a moment that's etched into my mind. There were a lot of those tonight. But not to be, notwithstanding, Will Ospreay did pick up the win. And, and it was, it's a cheat code of a match. You should watch that one back. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. If you've already seen it, you should run that one back and watch it again. I'm going to be doing that tonight along with the main event. And I'm going to be doing it with the Danielson match too because I want to see where I missed it. I knew there was going to be a shit show in there because it was missing a couple of elements. I did not know what the shit show was going to be, and I did not. I knew something was going to happen. I looked over at my son, and I'm like, okay, this is set up wrong. The way they were just getting in the ring, I'm like, wait a minute, this is not setting up correctly. Something's going to happen. So just kind of keep your eye out. Sure enough, that went on with it. Well, Will Ospreay... when he says he's on a whole nother level, believe that. He is on a whole new level. Pac rose to the level. It was almost shameful that he didn't win. I'm this close to saying the wrong person won, because Pac outworked Ospreay in a lot of areas. Now Ospreay outworked Pac in a lot of areas, but their chemistry balanced that match out really well. Long story short on that one there, Pac loses, and we're sitting there, and he's not even pitching a fit or anything. He just goes straight to the back, and you're like, wow, are they pressed for time? Of course, we didn't know what was going on later on, but you're like, are they pressed for time? So on and so forth. Turns out there possibly was a brawl in the back. And, it is what it is. Like I said earlier in the show, I have no confirmation from any credible source as to what happened. When I do get it, there'll be a post out about it. There'll also be a post on the Covalent TV, and they're going to discuss it tomorrow on their show immediately after Raw. So if you want to get the skinny on it, Mr. Starks is extremely connected, and he's working right now on getting the main story from inside the locker room. They're working on it. He's got friends, not in AEW. Don't get me wrong. We're not doing anything like that, but he has friends who know friends who you can figure it out. And these people talk. Wrestlers talk amongst themselves. If you don't think they do, you get blocked by one and you go to another one, you're blocked by them. Yeah, because they're friends and they talk. I've not been, except for R-Truth, and I haven't yet figured out what got up his ass for that. Don't care. But yeah, they talk a lot. So we're working on getting the information about what happened backstage. Then we had the Chicago street fight between Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. Willow. She's just so damn cute. Anyway, adorable. I'm sorry, I should have said adorable. Regardless of that, though, there was a lot in All Out. There was a lot more than any of us speculated on. It over-delivered on every segment. Statlander, Nightingale, notwithstanding, from the sick chair shot to the split over the... And guys, ladies and gentlemen, funny story, and you can tell me when I'm lying. Anytime a dude sees another dude get kicked in the nuts, I don't care who you are, how big you are, how much you work out. I don't care what you've done with your life. If a group of guys are sitting around and they see another guy get kicked in the nuts, they look at it, they wince, they draw in a little bit, because that's like the ultimate thing. That's the ultimate pain. At least that's what I'm told. Chris Statlander missing that split and coming down hard on those thumbtacks. And some of those thumbtacks sticking in very private and intimate places. You could hear her calling everything but a human. She just let out a litany of cuss words, and I'm like, yep, that got her. That got her. But shout out to these women here, because, number one, I didn't know Willow had it in her. That was one of the problems that I was having with this entire match. I was like, how is Willow Nightingale going to book a Chicago street fight when she's the most dainty face now, don't get me wrong, she can go. But she is the most dainty face on either of the promotions. And I knew she could go, but not at this level. They really showed up, showed out, and showed off. The trash can full of toys, the stuff in the ring, and so on and so forth. A lot of the desperation in there, the sense of urgency. And once again, there's not a title on the line. We thought the CMLL title would be on the line, but apparently CMLL refused to sanction a Chicago street fight. They didn't want, in other words, they can't predict the outcome of it, so they didn't sanction it. Title that we thought was going to be on the line, not on the line, but that's neither here nor there. Chris Statlander picks up the pin in an absolute cheat code of a show. And if we broke down match of the year into specific genres, best male, best female, best spot, best cage, best this, best that, if we had a best only for females, Willow Nightingale would probably win it, but Chris Statlander belongs in that conversation because she took some thumbtacks in places that none of us could take. And I'm not going to lie, I winced and bent over because it hurt me to see it. So, that notwithstanding, it was a good match. Don't get me wrong, 5 stars. Probably the best women's match this year, if not in the last 2 to 3 years. Some of the spots were off, and I get it. There's, you've got people that are trying to figure out who they are and trying to figure out how the fans are going to react. Excuse me. Hey, we're up to 17. Thank you very much for showing in. Be sure to like the stream, follow the stream if you don't mind. But I don't think we're going to get another women's match between now and this time next year that's even going to come close to that. I'm just going to say it right there. Cheat code. The spots in it were sick. The spots in it were vicious. And if women want equality in sports, this is how you do it. You go out there and you work like the men to show that you have the value of the man. I'm going to let that marinate for a minute. But yeah, the biggest surprise to me in this match here was that Chris Statlander won. And apparently I'm in the minority on that because I don't see it. Willow being a heavily pushed favorite, being a brand ambassador, and carrying a title from another promotion, that didn't scream, Chris Statlander to me. I mean, it screamed Jamie Hayter, to be honest with you. But the two of them got in there and they put on one hell of a match. It was very physical, very violent. Near the end, it was ridiculously violent. We loved it. I mean, who doesn't love Willow anyway? But who doesn't love Mad Willow? That would be even better. Who doesn't love Angry Willow? Who doesn't love Psychotic Willow? Because we were getting there. That's fact. But yeah, Chris Statlander defeats Willow Nightingale. There was just so many spots in this match. There was a light tube spot that cut Chris Statlander over in the head and the back. Other than that, I mean, that was the most memorable part of it. But yeah, she picked up the pin over Willow Nightingale, so we'll probably hear about that on Wednesday. Then we had Okada, Orange Cassidy, Mark Briscoe, and Takeshita in a 4-way Continental Championship Classic. This was pretty good back-to-back. You got an actual stare-off in there between Orange Cassidy and Mark Briscoe, setting up probably for some kind of future run down the road. Then you had the stare-off between Okada and Takeshita. I will get these names right. Takeshita and Okada. They cleared the ring out for them so they could have a couple of bumps with each other. Crowd went that crowd went batshit crazy over that. So, Tony, you've tested it out in front of a live product. Now, granted, the Chicago crowd is the Chicago crowd, and they're an anomaly. In general, they're an anomaly to wrestling fans. Kind of like that French show was an anomaly to European fans. Most Europeans do not go all in like that, no, pun intended. They just don't. The thing about this match that really sat with me, though, is I could have done without Orange Cassidy, and I'm just going to go out on a limb and say I could have done without Mark Briscoe, even though he was wildly entertaining. Wildly entertaining. But I'm getting close to being done with him, too. Yeah. It's just a matter of it should have been Takeshita and Okada in there one-on-one for the title. That's how it should have gone. 1-on-1, and we could have actually gotten a little bit of a Takeshita push. Not to mention, Takeshita is going to be at, Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling in October. Triller has that pay-per-view set up. It's 2 nights, and they're selling it for $29.99. I would recommend getting my hands on that. Scott D'Amore has gotten a hold of Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. And anybody who's familiar with Scott D'Amore, they know that he was the man when TNA was starting to oversee their massive growth before the WWE trade deal, before all that other stuff. Or I'm sorry, the TKO deal, since people don't realize that that's all one and the same. So between all those deals there, it's like was going somewhere with this, and I just totally lost my train of thought. Bear with me a second. Oh, Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, yeah, he's going with Takeshita. That card is stacked. It's $29.99 on Triller. That's going to be the best $30 you ever spent because it's $15 day one, $15 day two. We all waste $15. Now, come on, let's get real with ourselves. Takeshita is going to headline that 2 nights in a row. So I thought going into this match, I know where I was going with this now. I thought for sure that they were going to let Takeshita come over the top there, capture the title, go to Maple Leaf Pro with the title, take the AEW title to Maple Leaf Pro for that match, and do a little goodwill ambassadorship. Apparently that's not going to happen. Kazuchika Okada retains after a whole lot of actual main roster in-stage fuckery that just kept on and on and on and on and on till we got rid of Mark Briscoe and Orange Cassidy, and then we got what we were looking for a minute, and then Orange Cassidy runs back in, everybody gets in, and Orange Cassidy actually ate the pin, so maybe Tony's coming around. Who knows? Maybe. But then following that, we have Mercedes Moné versus Hikaru Shida. This is the one before the main events. I'm in agreement with everybody. Tony, you need to move Mercedes matches up. If she's not the main event of the show, which is likely it's not going to happen for years, it could happen. But if she's not the main event of the show, do not put her in this position. She should have gone on after Chris Statlander or before Chris Statlander. If that would have happened, I think the pop would have been happier. I think the pop would have been greater. And once again, we're back up to 18 now. Thank you for joining us. Here's for you. And actually, it was after this match that security tore off up into the back, and so the dressing room area. So I thought we were getting a brawl out again at the beginning when the story started hitting because Mercedes Moné worked this match like a Mercedes Moné match. Hikaru Shida worked this match not like a Hikaru Shida match. And near the end, Mercedes Moné was just getting frustrated. You could tell. You could just tell she was getting frustrated, the fakes finishes and everything else. You could tell she was fed up with the match. And so that's why I thought the brawl was between those two in the back, and it'd be the match after the match. But Mercedes Moné picks up the win. There was a lot of technical wrestling in this thing here. I think Hikaru Shida stepped up to the plate, picked a bad night to have a bad night, because she's usually 100% better than that. Mercedes was off a little bit too. I don't know if it was just actual shock of going back-to-back pay-per-views like that within a week, or the fact that she actually had somebody in the ring that she could fucking work with the exception of the ending, and I think we can all chalk the ending up to it being a language barrier, something to that effect. But yeah, Mercedes Moné picks up the win, and we get Camille coming down the ringside now that the match is over. Mercedes and Camille leave together, etc., etc. And then it happened. I'm going to preface this next match by saying it this way. I have never been a Jack Perry fan. I wasn't. When I came into AEW, he looked like a spot monkey to me, and I said so. And I've said it over and over again. I've said it on these streams. I have said over and over and over again that Jack Perry was a spot monkey. Because I believe that's what he is. I believe the same about Darby Allin, too. Darby Allin is there to do spots, take bumps, and typically Jack Perry shares the exact same thing. His use in matches that I've seen so far, when it's multiples and not one-on-ones, is that he is the spot machine. He's the guy that got set on fire. He's the guy that gets strapped to the cage and has gasoline poured all over him. He's that guy. Last night, anybody can say what they want. I owe Jack Perry an apology. Jack Perry worked like his ass and hair were on fire, and he had 55 minutes left before they fired him. And in Bryan Danielson's credit, he hung right there with it. He's getting up. He's pretty close to my age, if not older. And so I thought it took a remarkable amount of effort from both of them to make this match work out, and also to set the tone for your AEW match of the year, and probably professional wrestling as a whole match for the year. When we get Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Confident himself, Swerve Strickland with Prince Nana Coffee, Prince Nana. This had a big fight feel to it. It really did. After they did the introductions, I'm breaking this one down a little bit at a time based on stuff I can remember, because it's actually pretty important to this segment to know a lot of stuff. They had some pre-match kind of back and forth, the bell hadn't rung and all this. And meanwhile, while Swerve is distracting Hangman Adam Page with this picky fight before the match starts, Prince Nana's loading the ring up with goodies. And by goodies, I mean weapons. So they get up there, they get up to the ring. The cage is still lowering. And Hangman tries to get through the ropes. Swerve grabs him, holds him in the path where the cage would rest on his neck and break his neck. And he just smiled. Yeah? The match was also exacerbated by, I never have anything bad to say about AEW commentary. I have lots of bad to say about WWE commentary. It's void and non-existent. That's just two dudes sipping a beer without a beer and smoking a cigar without a cigar, sitting around a campfire talking about professional wrestling. That is not commentary. Commentary tonight, last night, was equal to that. Now, I love JR as much as everybody, and you know what, JR, get well, stay well, you're the man. But there was this point of contention all night somewhere on the commentary desk. So when the next segment hits, Blackpool Combat Club gets in there. Actually, no, I take that back. They have a cheat code of a match. Jack Perry takes him to the limits, and he's laying there on the mat. Christian Cage comes out to cash in his contract for his earned contract. And the rest of the Blackpool Combat Club and Pac show up to stop them. They retreat. We've got Blackpool Combat Club in the ring. We've got Bryan Danielson in the ring. Mox gives him a hug. And then out of nowhere, Claudio gives him an uppercut, and it's on. He's looking at Claudio like, "Et tu, Brute?" And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Jon Moxley produces a bag that you can't rip open, pulls it over the head. Only EMTs can. They've got special powers, guys. Then he secures Daniel Bryan's head in a plastic bag, and we have the near smothering incident. Now, this is a level of violence and a level of hate and a level of disdain that I can actually get behind, because everybody's got that guy that you want to do it to, you just ain't done it yet. And then women too. Women too. But yeah, there was that. Then, they pull the bag over Bryan's head, and it got so bad the crowd was chanting, "This is murder," because they were absolutely correct. It was murder. That notwithstanding, though, it was a good segment. And I'm going to be honest with you, I cried a little bit at the death of the Blackpool Combat Club as I know it. I didn't like physically cry physical tears, but my soul cried a little bit like, wow, I've just gotten used to them and now you're breaking them up. It was a very sad, very traumatic moment for me. But then Bryan Danielson, they finally get everybody out of the ring. Medical personnel come down, apply oxygen. Then all four of them carry him out because apparently they don't have time for a stretcher because they don't know if Bryan Danielson's dead. And quite frankly, if you're being honest with yourself, none of us knew. It's good stuff. Now, I want to address this part of it right here because so many people have said, I did not see this coming. I did not see that turn coming. But the way they lined up in the ring, the way they were positioned, the way Pac was all the way over here and working his way around to Yuta and starting to hug Yuta, and Mox comes around the corner here like this, you knew something was going to happen. I did not know that the Blackpool Combat Club was going to break up that way by itself, on its own, in that particular scenario. No, I did not see that part coming. But I did see some main roster fuckery coming because this is before the main event, and I don't know what they're trying to cool down here because the crowd was already just like red hot, and in some cases white hot during this match. So I don't know what they were trying to cool down. They stand around for a little while, and then all of a sudden it goes down. Claudio gives him an uppercut. He falls back on his knees looking at Claudio with that look like you just shot his dog. And you're like, wow, that was a pretty intense look. Claudio, calm, cool as the other side of the pillow. Mox slips up behind with the bag that you can't rip open. Only EMTs can rip open. And they proceed to smother him out. At the end of that particular segment, the EMTs magically got the bag split open. And they carried him to the back because apparently they did not have time to wait for a stretcher. Bryan Danielson out like that. But that wasn't even the best part of it. After they did this beatdown, Mox and crew just break out into the crowd. They're walking single file stoic, like we were on a mission to kill this dude. Came up short this time, catch us next time. That kind of stoic look, walking through the crowd. Shout out to 19 viewers. Keep on liking, sharing, please do. Comment. I don't care. Comment there. Comment under the post. Comment under the post. I'll answer comments. I don't have a problem doing that. But yeah, like, comment, and share. Let's get this stream going. I want to get this stream built up to where we've got at least a couple of hundred viewers a time. And I can't do that without your help. So all help is appreciated. Thank you very much. We have arrived at the most controversial match since the last controversial match at All In. We have arrived at the lights out, unsanctioned, steel cage match between Hangman Adam Page and your boy Swerve Strickland. And they are quick to point out this match is unsanctioned. AEW is not responsible for what happens later, blah, blah, blah. There were so many good spots in this match. I don't want to mess it up by missing one. But one of the best spots for me, so this was the spot that gave me the tone of the night. The biggest spot for me was those two fighting in the ring with that cage coming down. And commentary was really hyping that. Like, if they don't get out of the way, they could get decapitated. I mean, they were just pointing out everything that could possibly go wrong there. They were building the momentum of this thing. But these guys were really, you believed that Hangman and Swerve literally want to kill each other. On set, off set, if they lived on the moon, they'd be taking out hits. You got that feeling out of this. I did. That's for sure. But even from that opening segment on, the barbed wire, the bricks, the wood, and the introduction to something that I said would have been pretty hot a long time ago after the house burned down. I said on Thursday, what would be really hot is if they somehow worked a burnt ember into the match. They worked it into the match. And I wasn't trying to smark it up. I was genuinely interested to see if that could be used as a prop. Turns out it can. Turns out a cinder block is a prop. Turns out a syringe of probably Novocaine is a pop. This match was sick for all the right reasons. You had a big fight feel. You had two men who genuinely, you can believe, hate each other's guts. And we're going to lock them in a steel cage with a whole bunch of toys to play with. Sign me up. Sign me up. This match was so emotional for me. As it has been, I don't feel alone in this. When they were breaking down commentary last night and got to this match, it was like it's like a lump in your throat. You want to talk about it, but at the same time you want to cry because it was so fucking beautiful. So well executed. That this grown-ass man was sitting in his chair like, I'm going to cry. The things that they did with their bodies, the things that they did to their bodies, kicking it off with a staple gun. Y'all know that Swerve Strickland wrestled most of the rest of that match with 3 staples in his pecs, still doing high-flying moves, so on and so forth? Man, Swerve is the man. It was a lot of back and forth. There was not as much blood in this one as there was in their first encounter. But boy, oh boy, could you sense that rage. I sure could. And it all culminated in a 2-part spot. Hangman gets Swerve somewhat discombobulated and disoriented, comes out with a syringe, takes his grill, throws it on the mat, comes out with a syringe, pops him with it. And you can just see the drool running down his face. I'm like, well, that must have been Novocaine. I wonder what's coming next. And the chair shot heard round the world that was so vicious, so violent, that we have to look at camera phone footage because apparently we weren't filming that. Let that sink into your mind for a second. After a little bit of back and forth, a couple of spots on the cinder block, and I think Swerve got the worst of that one. I don't think Hangman did anything but scratch his back up. I don't think he's hurt. I don't think he's injured. I know that Swerve is going to be out for a significant amount of time, and that's why this match was written the way it was written. Just in case you were wondering, that is a confirmed news story. That Swerve Strickland will be out of action for a little while. And if I'm not mistaken, Hangman Adam Page is going to be taking some time off as well. So they sold the double injury angle. Hangman Adam Page wins this match by knockout with the world's loudest chair shot ever. And just like clockwork, the CTE demons were out going, oh, we got to stop doing this. Kids are going to try it. Okay, then we got to stop putting guns in video games. Kids are going to try it. We got to stop putting stealing cars in a video game. Kids are going to try it. We got to stop putting gratuitous sex and rape in video games. Somebody's going to try it. So I don't know why we can't have a chair shot, especially with a rigged show. And quite frankly, I don't care about the algorithm on that when I'm making a point. I know somebody's going to go, oh, you said the R word. Yeah, I did. Because that's the only word that actually puts a serious visual in your head when no other word will. The match ended with the world's loudest chair shot and the world's sickest Novocaine injection. Hangman Adam Page starts up the ramp, turns around, catches a conscience, comes back down a little bit, realizes he can't come back down now because he literally just smashed Swerve Strickland's head clean into the ground, and Swerve's sitting up there like he's counting money and eating ice cream. So he can't come back down there. He heads back up the ramp a little bit, has a psychotic break, and we're done with the show. All Out goes out on that. Then we got to the media scrum, and the only reason I can cover the media scrum is because it was that fucking short. Tony Khan alluded to the deal, but did not announce the deal outright. Tony Khan was the only one to take questions. There were no wrestlers present for this. The pre-show to the scrum, or the post-show of All Out leading to the pre-show of scrum, was hosted by RJ, Renee, and I forget who the other person was. It'll come to me. I'll put it in the comments, or I'll put it in a post there. They did that for a few minutes, and Tony Khan came out, took questions. We did not really seriously discuss the TV deal. He did have a couple of analysis for the matches. Overall, I'm going to say that All Out was definitely worth the $50. And we're going to do a show here shortly, not today, but in the very near future, about revenue and profits, attendance, and so on and so forth. Kind of help the viewers out. And still, shout out to 18 as we're rolling down to the end here, guys. So I want to thank y'all for sticking with me and rocking with me here. Without y'all, I don't have anything to do except sit here and talk to myself. Up to 19, that's even better. Love it. Overall for All Out, investment ratings and actual ratings. MJF Daniel Garcia, I give 2 stars. I was moderately invested in it if Daniel Garcia won, because I thought if Daniel Garcia won, that means he's going to re-ink a contract. I could be wrong, and he could be re-inking that contract now, but I think I'm right, and he's heading to NXT. That loss was his kick out the door, saying thanks for the memories. 2.5 stars. Young Bucks and Blackpool Combat Club, 1 star. I wasn't as invested in this match. I came to be invested in it based on the showings Friday night. I came to be invested in it based on that showing. We didn't get the same one. Will Ospreay and Pac, 5. 5 stars. 5 out of 5. Very good. Willow Nightingale, Chris Statlander, 6 out of 5. Because women don't normally perform at that level. And plus, some of the places that Chris caught some thumbtacks, I don't know how she kept working. I really don't. But she did a real good job, finished the match out, whole 9 yards. 5 stars for that. Okada, Cassidy, Briscoe, and Takeshita. 2.5 stars. I wasn't as invested once I realized that Orange Cassidy was actually going to participate in the match and not just be sitting there left for nothing to do by his own vices. If you leave him like that, then he can enhance a show. If you come in barking orders, the show's going to stink. So 3 stars, and my investment rating on it was 3 out of 10 because I didn't know which Orange Cassidy we were going to get or how he was going to be presented. And I'm just not a big fan of Orange Cassidy. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not a big fan. I wish Tony would fire him. I wish he'd quit putting him on every single pay-per-view. Also, I wish they'd quit talking about he's got the most wins this year when it appears that he's tied with Will Ospreay, and Will Ospreay may have bested him today or yesterday. Mercedes Moné, Hikaru Shida, 5 stars. They put on a good match. The ending was a little bit bonky, but we're going to have to assume until we get other information that it was anything other than a legit injury. So that's that. Bryan Danielson, Jack Perry, I'm going to go 4.5 stars just because the ending of it created a buzz for all the right reasons and all the wrong reasons at the same time, because WWE drones don't understand actual cinema. They're told what they're watching is cinema. It's not even close. This was actual cinema. So, yeah. Even with that, it would have been a 5-star if we hadn't had such a janky turn. Because you know what? You can turn and kick the shit out of somebody for a couple of minutes. That gets the crowd in it the same as if you put a plastic bag over their head and we had to watch them suffocate with the fans going, "This is murder." Yeah, that part. The reality of it is it was a great match. It just I could not get invested just for that one reason right there. Hangman Adam Page is a 6 out of 5. I'm ready for part 3 on that. Overall, I think it was a fantastic match. It was a cheat code all the way across the board. Match of the night, obviously, would be Hangman Adam Page, Swerve Strickland. Moment of the night, Chris Statlander taking that table shot that she didn't have to take to try and sell a match to keep the crowd interested. Hot take, Chris Statlander ought to be a women's world champion. That's not really a hot take. Everybody thinks that. But overall, the show itself, it received a 9.8 rating on Cage Match, which apparently is the highest rated AEW pay-per-view ever, which we've only been at it for 5 years. Let's be honest. 5 years forever ain't that much. But they put on a lot of bangers. And that's that. I'm wondering, in all honesty here, as we close this show out, I'm wondering in all honesty what WWE was thinking about booking a steel cage match on Friday that close to All Out. A lot of WWE fans watched All Out. Either they watched it by bootleg, VPN, which is still bootleg, at least you're paying some money, or they actually plopped down to $50 either on Triller, Bleacher Report, YouTube, someplace like that. Doesn't matter. They saw that steel cage match. If I were y'all, I would think about revising it because you get Solo Sikoa and Chody Rhodes in a steel cage together, trying to work a match like what we saw last night. It's going to be a disaster. So I have no earthly idea how they're going to do that. And that's my clear the air for the night. I didn't get any chats today. Please, guys, I really encourage it, especially y'all on the Twitter. I've got it lined up where I can see them, or I should be able to see them. If I can't, drop a note underneath the stream when it releases so that I know. You don't have to. It would just help me out so I wouldn't have to chase so much. Other than that, yeah, we've been at this for about an hour and 22 minutes. That's not too bad. So I'm just going to go and get out of here for the day. I'll be back probably Thursday, if not Tuesday. Probably Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday again next week. Here at Grabs TV and the Sicko Show, I've been your host, the Matty Man, and I do thank you for joining us for this AEW All Out review. And just like to say, good afternoon, America, or good night, America, wherever you are. Take care. I'll see you on Tuesday. Bye.